Hello. This is now, I think, Saturday, or is it Sunday? Early Sunday. This is from Europe, and those are the headlines of today. I have now switched to English again, understanding that what I experienced in my youth, that is very important as a key to understand what secrets were hidden. This is in the three investigators mode. I hope you have heard of Alfred Hitchcock and of his youth novels, The Three Investigators. There's three investigators, detectives. And that means I'm now talking English, even that is not what I'm used to do. And there are strange things going on. I never asked for any help in the sort of interference, but it looks like there is not even the internet open without so-called helping. The search results have artificial intelligence, but sometimes I'd like not to have it. The time of the new history, let me say from the Civil War of the United States onwards, the history has been with things not 100% as being published in the newspapers. I now went after rumors of my very own family history and came to the conclusion as a boy I was in the reenactment, and that is a thing to consider. Not every photograph that is shown as having been taken on 1919 is exactly from 1919. And this, of course, is known to those who understand the digital world. But for me, it is something I first have to understand if it is important enough to undergo such work that has not the outcome sure. And I have now not only 8 gigabyte in my refurbished PC, but 16, and it is still stuttering somehow. This could be what I then would call an illegal surveillance of some kind. I spoke with the provider to get internet port address that is different every time I go to the internet, that there is not too much possibility to find out. You could use VPN or other methods, but even those are, of course, with the possibility to be surveilled. I was not explained why I could play Carl. He was negotiating before the official end negotiations at Versailles. My own grandfather it is. I only understood he was among the relatives. Therefore, that must be known, but I have no official, not any official record about it. And I go through it like brainstorming. There is history that had changed the world. This, of course, is a history in the Eastern parts of the Germanic countrysides, and there goes my family traces, or my family trace, to the Baltic. You might say it could be East Prussia, or it could be Poland, or as it is in German, Litauen. This is possible, and why don't I know more about it? Why is that the case? It could be explained because life is demanding. After World War II, there were people missing. My own father was expected back from the war. He was, as the Englishmen or the Americans say, left in combat. But this is not true. He was drawn to the last resort, not officially a soldier anymore. And then he is considered to be missing. I could explain it better in German. Therefore, if you have any requests, please ask me in German or in English to explain my English talk. This is a photograph, and those are still living and don't know anything about the traces I'm now trying to explain. This is me, and I already found out that the play that was recorded but not seen on television, Dennis the Menace, was in part, I don't know how long it was, it wasn't explained, it was cut together later, and there I was Dennis. I was ordered to play like a boy that was nice, but doing damage nevertheless. And I can remember I went there. It was something, an aunt, she was called Mum, being on holidays, a holiday mum. She said, I can have, or I can give you something where you can learn to be more self-conscious. I was rather quiet, and it is not very good if you know the world had been changed because of the Hitler regime, and it was in the 70s. There was not everything put in order again. This is from the old time. Since I have very old parents, and this in itself is very extraordinary, I had not chosen it. My mother was very old, and she gave birth with the help of another birth mother, my younger mother. And this was for some reason done in a foreign country. For some time it was, when I asked, people were not wanting to talk about it because it is extra. You have your life and your work. The Wirtschaftswunder was over. The wondrous commerce that was exploding after World War II were made in Germany was very much demanded. That was over, and Papa, he was without work. And my mother, the younger, she had to go to school. And then my asking was not very often answered, but I was after it. And sometimes I was like Dennis, looking and not finding anyone to talk with. The neighbor, Mr. Wilson, he was my playmate over there. I thought I could go to him and have him as an adult playmate, as you see on the movies. Some things are developing without having a script. And then it was put together. At home, my mother, the younger, my mother, the older, she was also saying, don't come with this at the moment, come back when I'm awake from my rest. She was resting in the midday between 12 or 13, 1 o'clock p.m. It is 13 o'clock in German telling. 1 o'clock p.m. to 3 o'clock she was resting, and then I could ask. I was a curious boy. I wanted to know everything, and about my father as well. And then I understood he was a little bit different in the Third Reich. I now looked into all the findings. Now the internet has scans and very old pictures. And I'm now looking at the screen. It's stuttering again with the recording. Maybe I switch off the internet. And it is strange. It is like someone is not wanting me to do so. This is conspiracy practice, if it is. This is reenactment. That was at Haus Bertha, and that was in the Third Reich, a home for the youth to train, to work the ground. And many of them went to Israel, and some went on to America. And there was another show, but it was not explained where the people came from. It was something not talked too much about. And if you have relatives who had to survive World War II, maybe you understand. This was before, it was after the destruction of World War I. Then my mother, and I found this movie. She had explained she had a stunt that was for her income, and she had trained to spring from this letter to the other. And there she said she saw the hand of Fritz, of my father's hand. He was still missing in the war. Therefore, I learned about him from the tellings of my mother, and understood she was very much adoring him, and others did as well. Therefore, everything I had as extraordinaries, I thought or understood, had to do with the respect people, for unknown reasons, I think calculated why, but it was not openly communicated. This is my mother when she was having a bad time after World War II. Even she was helping to build up the governmental entities. This was strictly secret. I'm not understanding, even not now in 2024. There's no October the 20th, even now I'm not understanding why. And she was not able to have children at that age. She was looking for possibilities, and then she earned money. And the doctors could help the operational scars to correct them. And she was able to have a child, me, and that is something that was not that interesting for others. But now understand, it makes me the planned child of my father and my mother. My father being most likely from 1800, this is no error, from 1800, 1558 or 65 or something like it. His birth record was put in the record as his baptism date, or the other way. His birth date was the date he converted to the Western style. His so-called tribe, his tribe system was not believing, not at all. I think those were agnostics. But this is in the dark, still in the dark. And for me it is strange that I think, since I'm looking to find out my family secrets, the state was not interested, the state doctors and so on were not interested in me at all. And then suddenly the unwanted help with false diagnoses. I was becoming a little bit louder and having arguments with state officials, and I'm still not knowing how those came to the conclusion to send doctors. And this has to be found out, because that, if it is translated to other language, wouldn't give me the possibility to travel to other countries. This is from the old day, and please understand, if my father is that old, because of the extraordinary circumstance that it was most likely 1858, I'm telling it as theory, as a theory. But in his so-called tribe, there had been the life expectations to 120, 150 years. Therefore, my father was very old. He most likely was 35 years older than my mother. And my mother most likely was not as officially recorded from 1904, but she was from 1892. My father officially was recorded in 1894. And those is now my detective calculation. You understand? I'm going through it like brainstorming. This is the world, to show you where myself was invited. And it was as a very little child, and then the times had changed, and the rich inviters, the rich hostesses, you might say unknown if those invited, but I was having the chance. My mother, as we say in German, she put the strings together, and I was considered an orphan. This is my father, a picture of him. He was also a state detective, and I do not even know for what state exactly he had been. And this I put as a collage together. This is taken in Holland. There is a museum. I don't know where my mother was taken there, or her picture taken there in the museum. And this is really true. Sad enough, I find out it is true, because asking the Petrarch family, those think I'm lunatic to go to the conclusions that as a theory, it is very serious possibility. It is a very serious possibility that my mother is Johanna Marina. This is in the album. No, yes, this and this as well. And this doll, this little doll, she said she had taken along when she came, and it was not communicated with names. It was somehow veiled where she came from. There was a hospital where the doctors did not want my mother to recuperate, and the parents were not willing to have a sick daughter, maybe disabled daughter. There was an inflammation in her brain, and my mother, there she was developing the illness, the inflammation of the head as well, and she was deliberately looking old, she said. There was a time when my father was being looked after by the new government, by the Hitler regime, and there it is better to look old and not dangerous. And then at nighttime, those jumped across fences, and this really had been necessary, but it was not communicated. it was still dangerous after World War II. I tried to say so to officials because I already expected that the accusation you had better told before would be there. There was the movie Schindler's List, and there was someone invited to take to record the inside knowledge of my mother, that some of the helping to find escape routes was done from Breslau, but she was very cautious. I'm not that much. I wasn't there. No one could accuse me not to say so. For me it is a knowledge from the second row, but nevertheless I'd like to do so. And I already started, but then having those many difficulties, I now came to the conclusion I myself was invited to the White House as a boy. Later I was there as someone who could become a diplomat. And this was by someone unknown who was a talent scout. He said when the so-called German or Federal Republic's diplomacy would be sovereign again, I could have there a position. But then in the unification process, where there was much shifting, I understood the character of the whole political process was not according to what I was fitting in. With me, and this of course is my subjective, or not an objective understanding. This is my insight or my standpoint. I'm going to the old truth and truthfulness. That is, my detective work is to find out what there's going wrong. And negotiation is to, of course, try to have your best interest. But this is not necessarily something on the short run. You could as well calculate on the long run, or even try to bring others to understand that their, for example, natural resources could better be developed by someone else. But then the contracts are what counts, and but not fitting in, and not even being accepted from the Federal Republic's system. I understand this is not a plan anymore. Now it is journalistic work, and look what is there that is illegally hidden. But I cannot tell about illegal things. This would be an accusation. I'm looking for things that were without the ambition, somehow not rightfully administered. I think this is the only thing I can have as a theory right now. This is from the movie again, Woman in the Moon. And there you see my mother in the outfit of an actor. And understand there is still secrecy how the acting people are equipped to look like the actors or the characters they are playing. My mother had some things in the past. I'm not fully understanding why those were hidden. One thing was that others would be dangerous if those would be drawn in the open. For example, politicians after World War II, that would then look not very positive. It was, of course, something you won't understand if you had never understood politics. But police is not investigating on their own. They should do so. But if something is political, then there is even hindrance to look into things. And then there is the problem, there is no criminal case. There is no blood, and there is no stolen good. It is something, I think, that was moving, an illegal moving in the books. This, of course, is difficult to understand. I now go after pattern recognition. Pattern recognition is a way I already found out there are strange patterns. This is me, being in that surrounding, you understand as a child what is going on. But now looking back, and this is not sorted, not at all, this is like clickbait after clickbait. I'm telling you, I'm looking as a detective, and I want to persuade it is worthwhile. Looking at the whole, at the big picture, I now understand there are things like the invitations to other places, not only the United States, that could not be explained. I couldn't understand it as a child, that this was that extraordinary. I need my life wisdom, so to speak, and that this is no normal behavior, that a child is invited. Being an orphan of the war, this was not enough. There must have been a high standing of both mothers, or even mama. And this is not understood by me, because people are not even willing to help any bit. This is the United States with slaves working in the economic system. And there was the tales or rumors that my father and his father, foremost his father, those had plans, or even the forefathers, maybe the grandfather, having plans to work for the abolition of slavery. And there was the story, the nurse told me, I was very little, but still had ears and a brain to perceive. She said that the surname was after, and it is extraordinary that I understood with less than a year, police security and soldier security, and there was a system of military that was not bound to a nation, but the marshals must have been contractors all over the world, and there. But how did she know? How did she know that her husband, the parents of her husband, were bought free by a marshal family? Maybe the surname was Marshall by the military leaders of the company of my grandfather. He was then called Thurgood or Thurgood Marshall. He was training and learning with his wife, and she then came one day in the morning and said, if I'm now a little bit, she was a very nice nurse. She was very caring and waiting me to swallow. I had difficulty. And then she said, this time I will not be that calm because I did not sleep well. has nothing to do with you. It is because there was trouble learning. And she also thought about the possibility there was some hindrance. And this is, of course, conspiracy theory. But I was interested in detective work, having heard the rumors that my forefathers had been not only military but state detectives, or for themselves, private state detectives, being in the contract work, not only on merchandise. I don't know if there had been official positions. This is because of the war. It is gone in fire, in thin air. It was burned. But now understanding, there must have been a system all over the world. Maybe documents are in other places. This is not my mother, I think. It is reenactment. I remember there was the zero on the head, and I thought those are zeros in comparison with my mother was having she was Vorsitzende, eine Ehrenkompaniechef oder so ähnliches. It was in Dresden. I don't know, or was it? I'm not sure. My mother was extraordinary, but she was not someone in the women's movement. She was doing it as granted. She was she was learned. She had to learn to be self-defending. She learned it not only by her later husband, Fritz. He was in the bodyguarding of the emperor, and there's only rumors till I dared to look into the whole thing from the perspective of the BRESLAU-FRIENDS. And then I understood nobody would ever believe me that there had been resistance from inside the police system if I could not find out that my father was a specialist. And then understanding that the others still living from that time were not interested to look old and not having been in the resistance. It was not a resistance where you work as a partisan to shoot from the back, but it was something where you did it from inside the system without being against the war efforts. Therefore, my father was not an enemy of his own group, but he was strictly against the warfare against Russia that would destroy, he said, and that had destroyed that many trusts. Needless to say that many things are destroyed and would not be or are beyond repair. But this is to raise expectations. This is reenactment, okay? And this is not the character of my mother. It is a look-alike. And this was the countryside with the old borders. And now understanding that it is possible, my grandfather was a contractor, maybe the leading contractor or one of the leading contractors, working for the unification of Prussia. This is Prussia. There was a trick played against him, the rumors say. They had made contracts, and in the contracts written precisely even that only the Christian leaders would be reimbursed or would be paid. And then I don't know how it happened, but my father with his father, those went to the United States to train the Western diplomacy, and there was a conversion. Some thought it was something he did to go into the pattern of those accepted as valuable leaders, but my mother later recognized that it was a true conversion. He followed a stronger God. There was fight, and his conversion was looked at like a conversion of an Indian leader. I did not understand why someone said he was an Indian chief, because there are no Indians in this part. There was a main base. And then I have to understand it is possible that in the system there was a chief, my grandfather, and I came to the conclusion because the opposition was the greatest, or the main opposition against him, the leader. And he had lookalikes or contractors who are allowed, or who had been allowed, to work in his name as lookalikes. There had been this Karl May, and I'm not fully sure if this General Custer in the United States, if he was Karl himself. I think so, because Custer is similar to Küster. My grandfather, after his conversion, he bought a church for his company tribe. It was no tribe anymore. It was after those had been settled. Before those were called, not only, but among other names, the Huns, the wild riders from the east. But it was said in the rumors that 4 or 5 generations, the leading family of my grandfather had intermarried with the Piasts, or with the Western nobility. And this, of course, it is better to explain in German. Please look at the other videos or ask me. This could give you a false idea, hearing it in English only. Theories are most likely true. How otherwise could I have been there? This is not by, this is by chance. No, yes, by chance. And that there fell something on it. This is from a movie called My Summer with a German Soldier. There were different people playing this young boy. It was me as well. And I can remember that I was curious to find out why were the girls interested in me. I was not making myself being interested. I was rather extra, a little bit not interested in any relation. I still understood the girls were playing nice. And I was raised that way to be cautious because of the old enmity of my father. Being a military leader, the only converted military leader of the tribe system, that was no tribe system anymore. It was from the settlement, from the being settled on, a contract business. And this is important, that Ukraine is not part of it. It was till the border of Ukraine that there had been old relationships, but there was still interest to help the Ukraine, and there had been a helping hand, even not being contracted to be forced to do so, with the help of the Osmanian Empire or Turkey. And I think Liberia had some food to give the Turkish vessel. And then there was help done in the 30s for the Ukraine. And there my father, Fritz John, was involved, and my mother, she could not the strings together. And this is inside knowledge. I have only the rumors, but now the internet is there. And it is not a good thing that from the point on, I'm looking at the family interest, and this is of course an interest of me alone, no, not having any family, only a patchwork family. I hope the interest will grow somehow, like a miraculous awakening, because till now there is no interest in the whole patchwork family with the same surname, N-O-E, and so on. I must be cautious. There had been enmity because of my grandfather being the only converted leader that was a believer then, and he founded, or he bought a church, and first he was Catholic. Then there was trouble because of the possessions. Some from the other families had somehow donated money to the Catholic Church and were not being allowed to do so. And then came World War I and then World War II, and the whole thing is not solved, not till now. This is possible, PayPal Breslau-Friends, and please look there at the links. Thank you very much. This is 40 minutes, and what was it about? It was about the theory. Why I'm calling it a theory? For security reasons. The legal security. If this is true, then other families would have gotten their possessions not fully from legal sources. And this is the church also. Church, and then families, and this could go to Windsor as well, or to Dutch, or to Sweden, or to Denmark, and others, US as well, and of course to, I don't know, Prussia at all, or Hohenzollern. And this would be very strange, or Hanover, I don't know them. Very strange this would be, but it is a legal thing. You cannot negotiate about it. Legal grounds are missing. This is important. Legal grounds are missing, and I hope not. I hope it is not the case that I'm pushed under the surface with those illegal doctor's diagnoses to look like someone who is not able to tell the truth. The diagnoses are like in the DDR, in the eastern parts of Germany, or even Russia. You understand, there had been many people thrown into psychiatric assessment centers, and it was 50 years ago. But this happening in, this is not a theory, in 2021, and then again, 22 or 23, 2 times. And only because I did not stop asking questions. And please make sure there is not an excuse somehow invented after another. This is possible because I had to help. I had to help after the Allied had officially left the country. There were groups, and the groups needed help to come on its feet again. This help does not make me a member of any Allied group or so-called intelligence group. This is still forbidden, and I was never a member because this would then push me to a nearly illegal field. But there had been in the DDR the Stasi, and in Western parts it had been allied groups. Those were considered not fully intelligent groups, but groups that were helping groups, like in German Hilfstruppen. Truppen, Hilfsgruppen, helping groups, allied. I was never a member, but I helped to dissolve them, and there were some Piet groups, not necessarily Christian, but Christian-looking groups, sect groups. And there was a false rumor I was a member of them, and this is not true. This is very important, because here there was a lady called, this is her name, a little bit more, I disguise it a little bit, and she was helping the ex-Stasi, not believers, but from Piet people. And I wanted to see who that was, and I disguised myself as a Jehovah Witness. I'm not a Jehovah Witness. I played the part, some slang, and understood this lady is playing someone. I did it, of course, having been a detective before. Then later I stopped that, because to do it alone it is dangerous. I never did it alone. I did it on supervision, also in the United States. But she is not someone I know. And now I'm looking into it. What is with this Armeus? Why is it not answering, or früher Gertrudenberg? This is the assessment center. How come it is possible the police is collecting you? I was not resisting. I did nothing to make me criminal, but I have not found any attorney who is willing to look into it, because it is with false doctors' diagnoses. And I'm not going to any doctor of that kind. I think the whole country is still filled with those doctors that stick together. There's the German saying, eine Krähe hackt der andere nicht das Auge aus. One bird is not picking out the eye of the other, and this is the doctors. And this is, of course, a saying, those stick together. Doctors stick together. And I'm, of course, having my right not to do any diagnosis, treatment at all. I want to find out, and I want to have a written account why it was thought that I was ill. I want this in written form, and not even that is given me. To calculate if there's an error in the paper, there is no error. They said I have misfits in my brain because I think I could be related to Wilhelm II and Auguste Victoria, but this is for me not a big problem. This is most likely. But for the others, this is being mentally ill. And this, of course, then must be revoked, and not only revoked, but without any court. I do not want to go to court. I was very cautious not to resist and not to make myself criminal. But being called someone having affective disorders, this would be in the paper as something to be extra distanced, and this is dangerous for my reputation. If people believe what the state documents say, there is a so-called central register, and the government says this is from the Allied. And there is something in the papers that is not true. And I already complained and said, please correct it, but nothing is done. I was not in Stuttgart in the prison. I wasn't there. I wasn't there. And then the judge said, this is not possible that we make errors. And I said, of course it is. Of course it is possible to make a copy of my passport. This must have been in the 1983 or 4. And I read it, and I did not sign to forget it. There is then that trying to sign me contracts that I would be quiet about it. I'm not telling too much. I'm not interested to raise havoc. This I'm not. I'm not interested to give something to the open that then would give turmoil. This, of course, is not good. But having in the records something like a prison term I never had, this would give the whole registry. And I fear the fact that in this registry people look and then find out wrong things, shedding the wrong light on me. This video is to raise awareness and to hope you find it enough interesting to consider looking again at those videos I'm representing you. It is better to listen in German. This is much better because I feel narrowed, talk English. I had been there in my youth, but that was with people who spoke German. And now let me look for something to show you. I had been, and I think there's even proof, I had been to the White House, and now President Johnson. He had a grandson, and he said, I need someone to represent my grandson, to be a lookalike. Of course, this is not said to the open, and I don't know if I'm in trouble if I now say so, but look how young I was. And this is now in the browser. Let me switch to the browser. You see, and this is something I want to show you. Oh. On the left, that is me. You see, where the cursor is, physically in the photograph. And on that side, this could be the grandson, or it could be me. But then look, and please look at my ears, and there the ears are as well. I can remember he showed me his telephone apparatus. And now it goes even further. This is in the family album privately, and this is me with a nice lady, and it goes on. This is me in the private albums. Maybe you have seen it before. And this is found. Maybe this is even the best. It's not working. No, maybe it does. And there I was allowed to play a little bit more lively. At home I was rather educated not to meddle into the adults' affairs, but there I was allowed to do so. And it was, for me, it was a total different lifestyle. America was the land where you're allowed to do things not even thought about in this countryside. And you have seen it before, this photograph with my mother. There's only me. And this is only a hint. But for me, my remembrance is what counts, and I'm glad I had been there, because here in this part of the world, there were some things not being treated. I was there on a visit, not very long, but one time after the other, I think 2 or 3 times, with a doctor who worked with my bones. I don't know if the knee was not that strong. I still have weak knees, but I trained. And by training, you can make your ligaments strong. And this is, of course, something to look into. This is me on the photograph, and then there was Mr. Johnson. And Mr. Johnson, if it was him, I as a child had no chance to test his identity card. I think so. He came privately and he said, "You have no good surrounding." He thought I was intelligent, and he was not glad that the whole surrounding was not fitting my abilities. But this is not to complain. It is only to say that he promised he would do some planning for my education. But sad enough, there was nothing. Therefore, please look into the legacy of the United States President, Mr. Johnson. He was one of the men that were in higher positions. And I'm, of course, very glad my mother had those old related acquaintances. It was a governing ability my mother still had. She was doing it privately. And now, me speaking about it, I'm getting trouble from the government sending its doctors to me to molest me. I don't like that idea. Please help me. I'd like to be, I was very glad to be in the United States as a visitor. No understanding, most likely my birth was hidden from me. I'm wondering if there could be a proof that the wife of Mr. Thurgood Marshall, he was a human rights activist, as you know, a black man. Could it be proved that his wife was working in the United States at the moment of my birth? She was in South Africa as well. That then would make me someone born in South Africa, but I'd like the idea very much to be born in the United States. I think so. I was there at the step, at the threshold to become adult, 1986. Yes, it is the century before as well. That is the time my grandfather was most likely General Custer, and he was being very interested to bond to the First Nations. And my father then, he was acquaintance or co-worker of Martin Luther King. And my mother said the name Luther he gave himself when he had met my father in Berlin. This is something I cannot prove, but with circumstantial evidence I could do so. Therefore, please help me to find out if this can be proven. This, of course, is of interest. And this man is Helmut Schmidt. He was somehow wanting to meet me as a boy, and I never understood why I was having the chance to meet Mr. Schmidt in his weekend home. It was, this is inside knowledge. I can only give you inside knowledge to show that I had been there. It was somehow a street, and then there was the house, and behind there was a trailer with a ship. I can remember that. And there he said there were hidden cameras in the whole cameras. I never understood where they were. And I was there, and Mr. Schmidt, the chancellor, he was, or I was volunteering to be 2 days with him. For me, it was not a question. My mother said, maybe later you would have an advantage knowing the leading politicians, or have somehow an acquaintanceship. This did not work out. For me, this is okay, that it did not work out. Politics have changed. But I want to know about Mr. Thurgood Marshall and his wife, a Philippine, she was, I think. Was she a nurse? Maybe then it was, I came to the traces of Memorial, and there I was lost in a train, then being found and lost again, and then with a black color being brought back. I have this in my child memory. But the doctor saying, I'm making up things, I'm an inventor, or having even those schizophrenic ability to think about things that are not there, I need your help, that this diagnosis is wrong, because it is only based on my family detective work, or my detective work about the things. I now understand, and I'm quite sure I'm regarding them as circumstantial evidence, and it is a stuttering movie, 1 hour, 2 minutes, 4 seconds. I hope you can nevertheless not enjoy it. This is not for enjoyment, but think about it. Doctors give me diagnoses that my findings are not reliable. Is this possible in this day of age? This is the 20th, 10 October, and I'm not having fits of rage. I can yell very loud. I was thought to be robbed in broad daylight. Those were 2 men with drawn pistols, and I yelled that loud, the whole quarter came. And this, of course, is not schizophrenic affective disorder. It was my detective thinking to bring an audience, that I would not disappear without traces. But why was there no investigation inside of this not police work? Or was it police work from false state police? This is a theory as well. Please help me to bring it to the light, to the open, without any damage. I'm not mistrusting the judgment system, but I'm mistrusting the missing ability to look into things that are unbelievingly. But something of unbelief is not proven not to be there. Thank you very much. This is not a good English. I hope you understand. It is stuttering this time. Next time in German again. But please understand, this is not prepared. This is without any preparation. I could have the telephone calls with you, understanding enough to make myself understood and to understand you. But please be aware, I was having conversations, and the other was speaking English as a foreign language as well. And that then was, of course, something that could lead to misunderstandings. Therefore, please regard that problem. It could be with misunderstandings, and I want to know where I had been in 1985. There was invited to a reopening of a parliament, And then false rumors came to the audience through newspapers. I'm not gay, not at all. This for me is cutting my honor. I'm a straight man, and I want to stay that way. Thank you very much. This is Friedrich, 20th October 2024. Thank you.